Hello and welcome to the Men Are Human voice chat. It is Friday yet again, and we are talking about something that is so awful, so despicable, that we're probably going to get accused of being conspiracy theories for even bringing it up. But this is documented. It is part of feminist academia, and they are very, very serious. So, basically, what is happening is that over the past couple of centuries, some incredibly famous, incredibly key feminist theorists have basically established basically a final solution for the quote-unquote male problem, which is to essentially abort as many men as possible before they can protest about it, use IVF to select female offspring only, and essentially reduce the male population to 10% so that it can't, so it can be controlled and so men can be kept in, like, I don't know, camps or something if you listen to Julie Bindel. But it is absolutely serious, and nobody has been talking about it. You won't find this on Wikipedia. You won't find it on the pages of the academics themselves. And reviews of their books are incredibly glowing. These are incredibly popular and powerful people. But you won't hear about this little bit where, for example, Sally Miller-Gerhardt, Professor Sally Miller-Gerhardt, one of the first gender studies professors ever, who basically started the field herself, says that the male population has to be reduced to and maintained at 10% of the human population, which isn't 10% of all men. It's I'm not sure what the maths is on that. I haven't actually worked it out, but he's basically saying that men need to be reduced to a fraction of what they are. They need to be contained and controlled like criminals, and they need to be basically like treated the way the Jews were in Nazi Germany. And Mary Daly, another very, very, very famous feminist, she fully agrees. She cites Sally Miller-Gerhardt very favorably, and she says that yes, the male population should be reduced to 10%. Now, of course, we have Valerie, what's her name? Valerie Sontaras. I can't remember her exact name or how you pronounce it, but she has said that all men should be wiped out. Now, people talk about this as if it was satire because her views are just so disgusting. But quite frankly, she attempted to kill Andy Warhol and eventually succeeded when the bullet wounds basically destroyed his insides so much that he died. He was going out and killing a man because he won't put on her disgusting anti-male plays kind of says to me that she was pretty serious about her beliefs. She was standing on street corners with her Society for Cutting Up Men pamphlets and all that sort of stuff. And he was very, very serious. He called men walking abortions and things like that. And one of the biggest feminist organizations in the world supports us. They smuggled the manuscript of the Scum Manifesto out of the lunatic asylum she was in. They treat her as basically a feminist visionary. And The Guardian has written Judy Bindel of The Guardian has written a very, very favorable review of her book. She didn't write it in The Guardian, she wrote it on Feminist Current. And there is an entire list of other famous feminist academics who have said the exact same thing. And I'll just get it up for you so you can.
I think the funny, I think the funny thing is the man were a fraction of the population in the medieval time because men died a lot because of the war. And nothing changed.
I really don't know what you said there. Sorry. You said something about medieval
I
times?
said, I think the medieval times, the men were just a fraction of the population because they died a lot in the war. I don't see how that changed the so-called patriarchal oppose of the society.
Well, I'll grant you that men did go off and die an awful lot more, and they were essentially culled quite a good deal. Not the upper classes, obviously, but the lower classes most certainly were basically culled by various wars. They were always on the front line of whatever awful thing was going on, be it work or anything like that. So you could say, in a way, this has been an ongoing like thing against men since the very beginning. But in terms of a specific academic theory saying that we should cull 90% of the male population or whatever it is we can trace it back to the 1800s. Well, or at least that's as far back as we've traced it so far. There are probably examples of people saying this throughout human history, but the earliest we've so far been able to find is, hang on, I'll get her name. Louis Louis Weisberger, a woman who wrote for various magazines, and I'll get a picture up of her if you like. Okay, that didn't work, but if you go to the article itself, you'll be able to see her. And she is basically, she looks like a Victorian school teacher. And I'll just read you some of what she was saying. Okay, so I don't know how you pronounce her name. Louise, she wrote a novel called A Sex Revolution, in which she had advocated for the mass slaughter of men to reduce them to 10% of the human population. She also wrote a book called Eugenics or Race Cultural Lessons and contributed to a weekly anarchist magazine. Uh, yeah, and then on from her, we have Mary Daly, of course, Professor Sally Miller Gerhardt, Valerie Solanas, that was her name, and then on to Emily Combs, Deputy Editor of Huffington Post Personal, who is still Deputy Editor of Huffington Post Personal to this day, who said her New Year's resolution was to kill all men. And I think he clarified that saying yes, all of them or something. But he still has her position. Nothing has happened to her, so we can understand that as approval, or at least not disapproval, from the mostly female staff at Huffington Post. And now you can argue that she's not serious, but then if a man in a similar position had said that we should kill all women, do you think people would even stop to ask if he was serious or not? He'd be out the door, and as I say in the article, he would find it difficult to get a job sweeping the streets. And she's not the only one. She's not the last on the list. We have Clementine Ford as well, an American Showtime actress and author, who's very famous for having written things like, "Have you killed any men today? If not, why not?" when signing books. And she's also said coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough. And that was right at the height of the pandemic, right, by the way, when it was revealed the most COVID deaths were men. And that's as many as I've got on that list, but I have heard of several more. And if anyone wants to send me the names of them, please do, because I have actually lost the names of the others that were supposed to be on the list. And yeah, there's quite an undercurrent of misandry in feminist academia and feminist thought in general. And I think that it's high time we called on feminists to address it. We should, instead of taking their tactic and saying, you're all evil, you're all scum, we'll go, no, there are reasonable feminists. We should talk to them and we should get them to campaign against the rot and the toxicity in their own movement. Now, granted, feminism is mostly rot and toxicity, especially at this point. But there are nice ones and there are reasonable ones. And if we can mobilize them against the radicals and the extremists and basically, literally their entire academic force, we can possibly detoxify the movement a bit. But honestly, taking it apart would probably be easier at this point. Anyway, does anyone else have any comments or anything interesting you'd like to say about this? No? Nobody? Vader, have you got anything?
I don't think it's anything new. If you just look at any form of social media, man hating has become a trend. If you go there and just criticize feminism, they will say you don't understand feminism, what feminism is. You don't get to decide what feminism is.
Well, as I've gone through in that article before I got to the genocidal feminists, I went through a whole string of merely man-hating feminists, and there was a woman there who said that males should be basically castrated at birth, and then it should be reversed if they are, if they pass the feminist sort of test, and if they're sloppy enough and toe the feminist line enough, they'll get to have their junk back. And that is just it's a disgusting idea that feminists have had for a long time. Basically, the idea that men shouldn't be trusted until they've basically jumped through a bunch of hoops and things like that. I mean, you can see this attitude in basically every kind of feminist education. You can see it in the way they say that boys must be taught to respect girls, but there's never any talk of girls being taught to respect boys. Things like that. It's all in the shaming and the men are responsible for all war, men are responsible for all death and all problems of society. It's, as I talk about in the article, it's your classic stereotyping that you get with racism and homophobia and everything like that. There really isn't any difference between how feminists talk about men generally and how historically racists talked about black men and Jewish men and things like that. All they've done is get rid of the racial components, and they're just talking about the gender as a whole now. So it's an incredibly toxic thing, and I think it's actually a kind of mental trap that humans are prone to falling into, that perhaps has just been exacerbated by feminism to the point where it has just turned on all men, because traditionally racism and so forth is mostly directed towards the males. The women are generally considered to be like loose. Basically, they're considered to be like your typical worst things you can think of a woman being, is what the racists tend to think about, so like black women and so forth. And of course, they then ironically go and rape them. But what they do to the men is they treat them as vermin and they try to exterminate them or control them. And this is what we are seeing with feminism. They're trying to control men, and they're in that sort of stage where it's control them, enslave them. That sort of level of thinking is what is being perpetuated in the academia right now. Like, men have to be like reconditioned. They have to be retrained because masculinity is dangerous and toxic. But there is also numerous famous feminist academics who are, and famous feminists generally, who are quite happy to, like say, hey, there is a kind of a final solution we could take to this male problem that would help us control men a lot better, and that's to basically weed them out of the population using eugenics. And then some of them even go on to say that the remaining males would be a lot happier because they'd be surrounded by women, which is, I'm not sure I even should voice my thoughts on the person who said
I
that.
think
I
the
haven't
scary
actually
thing is it's not just some crazy feminist. I am saying is the scary part is it's not just some crazy feminist theory which only few extremists follow. I think it's deep rooted in our society, and our subconscious, and it's been constantly put in children. As a student, I can confirm the school system or education system in general is very biased against boys in general.
Yeah, it's true. That's true in the UK and in America too. At the moment, the entire education system is run by feminists, or at least, it's pretty much the case. They're basically injecting that ideology into every part of education. I've even heard of schools where they refer to the children as future activists rather than pupils. So that was just one school, but you get the picture. They're not particularly concerned with how men feel about this, because they are basically treating men as a kind of animal. And that's actually a line from Valerie Solanas. Men are basically animals, they're pigs, they're all these sorts of things. And they've gone from saying some men are misogynistic to basically all men are misogynistic by default, and we have to train them out of it, which is pretty unhinged stuff. Once we get into feminist academia, it really is pretty unhinged stuff. It's like we found studies saying that, well, not studies, but feminist papers. I shouldn't call them studies because they're not studying anything. They're just coming up with ideological rhetoric. But they're basically saying that carbon fiber has been decreed sexist because it allows men with amputees male amputees to participate in male sports where they can basically, associate and make friends with other men and form sort of, have locker talk. So carbon fiber is sexist because it allows men to, engage in locker talk that they wouldn't otherwise be able to engage with because they would be stuck not being able to exercise, not being able to join in with these, Special Olympics and things like that. So that's on the citation list, by the way. That's a real thing. As are all of these. We've got citations for absolutely everything here. Did anyone have any interesting stories about their personal interactions with these things? Because you've all heard mine, so.
I have one. I have many. I think it happened in 2019. There was some kind of speech competition in my school. Uh, Many people came early for the competition. Everyone gave their speech. They rated each person by giving them some points. I think I was the first one, and my friend won the second point. They told us, and we both had the highest point. And third one was some kind of a guy. I didn't know him very well, but after a few days, when they were when the certificate was supposed to be given, they suddenly decided to give the first prize and the second prize to some of their favorite girls who participated. But I know for the fact that none of them their speech was even close as good as the other participants because the one shuddered a lot and the other one gave a speech and both didn't have prepared so much of it. So I knew it was they give my place unrightfully to someone else, but still they asked me to come give a speech on the next Independence Day when they didn't even give me the first prize. And I've seen many instances of teachers
Hold
favoring
on.
girls,
Before we move
giving them,
on, I didn't get a lot of that, so I'm just going to repeat back what I heard, and you can correct me. So you were giving speeches as part of a school thing, and you were getting points based on the speeches, and they decided to give all the points to the girls, even though the girls didn't do as well as anyone else. Is that what you're saying?
nah. What I'm saying is, actually the first prize, second prize, or third prize were given on the base of the point how much a person
I'm sorry,
point
I
a
have
person
no
has
idea what
earned.
you're saying. So I had
Mine was
first
the highest.
prize.
My friend's was the second highest. I don't know about the third one. But when the time came to give, I actually won the highest points. So uh, I was gonna get the first prize. But after the few days, they suddenly changed their mind and said they wanted to give a girls the first prize to encourage them. They ended up giving them the first and the second prize. I was given the third prize, but still they expected me and asked me to give the final speech on the Independence Day on a school function.
Okay, I actually got that time, and wow, that's really that's insane.
I mean, their audacity to ask me on early in the morning to come for Independence Day to give speech when they couldn't even bother giving me the first prize. They say I would get because I got the highest point.
Yeah, I would have opened that speech with an apology or something like a sarcastic apology, saying that I'm afraid that the first place winner couldn't, make it, and so they had to, have the person who scored the highest instead, or something like that. You know, just something really sarcastic.
I think I think in India there are so many scholarships given to girls when there are none for the guys. When there should be focus on the both genders. I have seen constantly girls bullying some guys, slapping them, and teacher doing nothing. I have seen school taking girls and guys a certain year on different picnic spots. It was water park for girls, and guys were just taken to a park or something like that.
What, like just like a local park? Did they pay the same amount for the trip? Zeta? Zeta? Hey Zeta? You there? Anyone hear me? Hello? Can anyone hear me? I don't know if anyone can hear me on the stream, but we seem to be having some technical difficulties. Zeta? Can you hear me? Oh dear. Okay, guys, it turns out that Zeta seems to be having voice trouble. His mic keeps unmuting, but I can't hear him. Alright then, so we'll just have to continue until he comes back. Okay, so does anyone else have any examples of sexism that they've experienced involving like the ideological sort of side of feminism? Alright then, so we've talked through the article, we've talked through all that stuff, all that other stuff. I suggest that everyone reads the article because there's a lot of other information in there. It's not just a list of the names. It's a full discussion of how feminism is basically using the racist rule books to attack men. And I think that everyone should at least watch the video at the top, which is the one about how boys were made to stand up at the front of class and basically say sorry for being male. That's something that happened twice in Australia the same week. We nearly missed the second one because, well, it looked like the same story but from a different source. But no, it turns out that it happened twice. So it would be good for everyone to have a look at that. And all right then, I'm going to see if we can get some more people on here, but if not, we may have to call it. Okay, I'm afraid I'm going to have to call it because there isn't anyone else here for me to talk to, and I can't keep talking all by myself. So that is it for now. I'm afraid we've gotten through all the major points. We didn't get to a discussion side of it really, but yeah, it's actually a thing, and it's unfortunately a fairly common thing among famous feminist academics. If I'd widened that to feminist academics who support other awful things, then oh boy, be here all night. But oh, unknown, hello, how are you doing?
I'm quite good. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. We're just trying to get some more people on here. If you know anyone who might like to take part.
I'll check it. I'll tell my friends. Thank you.
All right, cool. Yeah, so we've been talking about how feminist academics, well, they've proposed that we, quote unquote, reduce the male population to 10% of the total population. And basically, the idea is that they want to abort male babies and use selective IVF, and if they can get away with it, chemical castration and things like that, to reduce men to a tiny fraction of the population that can be easily controlled. And they basically seem to be using like ideology, spreading hatred of men, and all that sort of stuff. He just vanished. I do have citations for this, you know. Sally Miller Gerhardt's book, The Future is Female, is one of them. She literally says it right in there. And this is stuff that is in news media articles and all that sort of stuff. None of you appeared. Did you have some connection problems there? Yeah, as I was saying, I've got citations for all of these things on the article I've linked to in the voice discussion. These are all things that are in published work. They are things they are quoted as saying in magazines and in books that they themselves have written. And there are numerous articles. These are basically pretty serious, a pretty serious ideological undercurrent in feminism, shall we say? And it does seem to be driving, like it seems to be the end concern of a lot of the man hate. But obviously, the majority of feminists don't support this and would be appalled if they saw it. And we can tell that because they try to keep it off of Wikipedia and things like that. But they are essentially propping it up by recommending these books and things like that. So it's very hard to tell how many people support this because they're being very tight-lipped about it, so we don't want to say. But it is certainly a thing in academia. In any case, we don't seem to have any people at the moment, so I think I may just call this for tonight. I've said all I intend to, but if anyone else wants to chip in right now and say anything, please do. All right, then, I guess that's it. Good night, everyone who is listening on the stream. Apologies that it wasn't the roaring conversation it usually is, but I'm afraid we forgot to advertise. So next week, I'm going to try and make sure that we have a larger topic and a larger conversation. Just like generally, if anyone wants to suggest a topic, please do on the Discord. Link is in the description if you're listening on YouTube. And good night, everyone.